I'm sure you've heard the phrase, sex work is the oldest profession in the world. But has anybody ever told you that it's also the most dangerous? And the stigma and taboo surrounding it leave sex workers with virtually no protections. How is it that this job has existed since time immemorial and we still haven't figured out a way to protect the workers? Well, some countries have, and it's surprisingly straightforward. Just decriminalize it. I'm Shibani Gokhale, a human rights lawyer turned journalist, and this is So You Wanna Fix, the show where we talk about our biggest problems and figure out how we can use the law to help fix them. There's no doubt that sex workers across the world are victims of exploitation and crime. In Canada alone, 294 sex workers were murdered between 1991 to 2014. And at the time that the data was compiled, over 1/3 of these murders were still unsolved, you guys. America and Canada both have abysmal laws when it comes to sex work. Surprise, surprise. Sex work is illegal in most states in America. And Canada isn't much better, though the laws here are a little odd. In 2014, the Conservative government passed a law which made it a crime to pay for sex, but not to be a sex worker. The law was aimed at protecting sex workers, but has actually made life much harder for them. Sex workers have said that punishing their clients is akin to punishing them. Many sex workers and advocates have gone on record to say that sex workers now have to make riskier compromises to protect their clients from getting arrested. So they may have to go to clients' homes instead of having the clients come to them. They may have to compromise on using protection, on the amount of time spent with clients, on sexual acts performed, etc. All of this is infinitely more dangerous. On top of this, studies show that Canada's Bill C-36 and criminalization of sex work in general puts LGBTQ+ and bi-POC sex workers at greater risk of harm. Canada's sex work laws have been called among the most restrictive in the Western world. But we can fix it. Decriminalize sex work. And no, I don't exactly mean legalize, although the two are connected. Confused? Let me explain. Decriminalization basically means that sex work would not be a crime anymore. So sex workers or their clients would not be criminally punished. Legalization means the government controls the profession and permits it only under specific conditions. A good example is the legalization of weed in Canada. Weed may now be legal, but the government actually regulates it to a great extent. Now, this may not necessarily work for prostitution because it could mean that the government can decide when, where, and how prostitution can be practiced. Talk about awkward. Okay, wait. So then what are we asking for? Scrapping the laws making the purchase of sex a crime and enacting a new one that recognizes the existence of sex work and gives sex workers access to critical social services. That sounds good, but what will it do? It will take away the fear of arrest for both the sex workers and the clients. It will make it easier for sex workers to advertise their services. Third parties will be able to advertise on behalf of sex workers. This is currently illegal, but it can be surprisingly beneficial because not all sex workers have access to resources like laptops or the internet. It will give sex workers the ability to screen clients and actually negotiate. You know, like how the rest of us do at our jobs? The right kind of law would give them better access to law enforcement, healthcare, and insurance services. Just human rights, no big deal. Decriminalizing sex work can also reduce the overall transmission of sexual diseases. It can lower physical and sexual assaults against sex workers, and it can help decrease crimes like exploitation of children and human trafficking. So if you think that a new law can only benefit sex workers and their clients, nope, you would be wrong. It's good for all of us. And you're probably thinking, this is some utopian idea and can never actually be done. But it has been. New Zealand did it. They decriminalized sex work way back in 2003 and enacted the Prostitution Reform Act. A study found that a whopping 90% of sex workers in New Zealand believe that the PRA increased their access to employment, legal, health, and safety rights. A substantial 64% said that they found it easier to refuse clients. 57% said that police attitudes towards sex workers improved, and one sex worker successfully sued a brothel owner for sexual harassment. Gosh, can you imagine that happening in North America? Opponents of the law in New Zealand said that it could increase the number of people choosing to go into profession. Now that's a valid thought, but subsequent reports have found that just wasn't the case. Now this doesn't mean that everything's been hunky-dory and that there were no problems. Some sex workers have said that the law benefits brothel owners and clients more than it does them. But overall, the law has improved their working conditions. Okay, let's come back to Canada. Before the last federal election, over 150 human rights organizations signed a statement demanding a similar model here. But could it actually happen? The Liberals, specifically Justin Trudeau, then an opposition MP, voted against the 2014 law that was introduced by Conservatives. Remember, the one which criminalizes the purchase of sex and not the sale of sex? Yeah, that one. So his opposition is a good sign, and the Liberals did make some vague promises to change it. Now that's kind of good. However, it has not yet been done and it wasn't a part of their 2019 platform. That's not so good. But it's possible that they will take up the issue with a little bit of push. And this is where we come in. If you've been wondering throughout this video what you can do to help, contact grassroots human rights organizations in your province. For instance, the Anti-Violence Project in Toronto, the HIV Community Link in Alberta, the AIDS Committee of Ottawa. We will add a link to all the 150 organizations in the description below. Ask them how you can help, volunteer your money and time, and most importantly, create awareness about this issue. The biggest hurdle facing sex work is the stigma, and that can only be countered through awareness. It's 2021 and it's time to normalize sex work along with decriminalizing it. You can start right now by liking and sharing this video. Please subscribe to our channel and let me know which problem you'd like me to tackle in the next episode of So You Wanna Fix.